super interested in how this pans out for Gabby, who is one of, if not the best player of this deck in the world, because I haven't discussed this with him. This is just kind of a conclusion that I've come to in my own regards. So we will see how quickly Gabby chooses to play this. Okay, we may end up learning nothing because Gabby just ends up drawing the absolute stone cold nuts instead.
Yeah, and just think, worst case, if Gabby loses the matchup, he can come and get some advice from you, Saul, because you've just factually never lost this matchup in your career as a Hearthstone player. So he can always
it this morning.
Oh,
I did
you're not supposed to
throw.
admit to that on stream.
I did hard throw. That was the game I was talking about. I forgot that I could backfire, die, and then come back to life with soul fragments, and did it too late and ended up losing to animations. For shame.
Well, so far though, free admission number 1 been played from Gabby. Double Stealer of Souls. Free admission number 2, Nightshade Matron, Dark Glare. There's only a hand of Gul'dan missing from this party to really get it rocking. Whereas Viper, you saw the smile and the nod, like he knows what's up. This is the equivalent to double flow in Mage, but in Warlock.
Yeah, and he will go with this hand. Even I, the most patient Warlock player in the world, would go with this hand because this hand just goes and never stops going. The amount of whiffs are so small at this point by the time you go Stealer of Souls, Dark Glare, Backfire, because you have 2 mana Nightshade as well, right? You'll get to that you'll get back up to that Nightshade mana from your Dark Glare, no problem. So even if you end up hitting further skulls or whatever, you don't even have to pay, hands, you don't have to pay 6 for the hand, right? Which is sometimes a scary thing to do against Mage. So I think this is a hand that's in incredibly good shape overall for Gabby. This hand pops.
Yeah, there is going to be 1 turn though, right? 1 turn gap here because Gabby does not have the mana to go Stealer into Backfire straight away. Is he going to play it? Okay. I thought he was just looking at a tempo Stealer then. I would have been a little bit surprised, but wouldn't have been the first time I've seen it happen.
No, I think because he's going to pop off so early here, like, again, it's not like if you just get good at the deck, you can kill someone on turn 5 every time, right? Sometimes your cards are just in an order that do not kill your opponent if you go off this early. So because of that, I think you need to keep the second Stealer on reserve so you can set up again after the fact to kill your opponent with the Tamsin Quest reward. I would have been very surprised to see a tempo Stealer there, even though I do think it is quite good in the matchup sometimes.
And the one small positive for Viper is he knows shenanigans are happening soon, right? More likely than not. This isn't a hidden big burst deck, right? If free admission comes down twice, you know you're in trouble soon. So we'll see what his response here is. He does have Incanter's Flow. The only problem with that is he has little else. And as you mentioned early, no minions on the board mean slow quest progression, especially with the lack of Ice Barrier in the hand here. So I do like Viper just trying to just push some damage here. He's going to use Ignite instead of the ping. It just stacks up that little bit of extra damage in the deck, and maybe that's enough. But the key thing now for Gabby is, if you see this card, then things are going to get nutty.
Instantly, as soon as the turn passed back, lean forward, gamer position, let's go. That is a Blood Nightshade Matron, which now makes the Blood hand that gets drawn even cheaper if Gabby does want to go that way. Finding, of course, the second Backfire was enormous. Would be surprised if this draw starves out at this point. There should be sufficient card draw left remaining in the deck. There it is. Gabby, if you don't kill your opponent here, retire your Warlock card. That's all I'm saying.
Well, there's the gauntlet been thrown down there from Sottle. We will officially not allow him to submit Warlock for the rest of the GM season if he loses this game. We definitely have the power to do that.
He's just done, right? Like, Nightshade does this, that's Tamsin, and he just plays Tamsin. He still has Coil for another draw, there's another hand. It's gotta be lethal. Come on, Gabby, don't let me down.
Where's the epic sax music is all I'm asking. I feel like
a rope gonna burn out? Is the rope gonna burn? Oh, the rope burned out! Gabby, no! What have you done to me? I believed in you!
So let me just check the rules that Sol's officially been put out here. If this isn't lethal,
we'll have to see if it was actually possible first, because he is discounting the damage with the weapon, so there was a chance that there wasn't actually a possible lethal here off these hand draws. Yeah, he's drawing very low mana cost cards here. Mortal Coil finds Mortal Coil again. Yeah, see, like these cards are doing no damage at this point. Yeah. All right, forgivable.
In response now, though, Viper probably has a fair guess that he at least feels like he's got a bit of a chance now. 9 cards still in the deck there for Gabby. And then a lot of this hand, I think it's fair to say he could assume most of the hand is 0 at this point with all those reductions that happened over the next few turns. Does have that second Incantus flow now. And very importantly, can freeze out this Tamsin. This Tamsin as a 7/7 is just a nothing on board right now. If anything, it's a target for his quest progression.
Yeah, problem with that though is there's 0 mana Stealer and 2 0 mana Unstables in hand as well that can start dealing damage here. So I don't think Viper is long for this world at this point. I don't even know how many real cards Gabby has left in his deck and whether Fatigue's a factor here, because I think a good chunk of those are Soul Fragments at this point.
A bit rough there, having the full-costed Demonic Assault. Or at least the mana-costed Demonic Assault, should I say.
That'll do it. School Spirits, your own board, soften it up, blast them with your 2 Unstables. Job done. Yep. That'll do it. Nicely done. I think, honestly, as much as I would have, again, loved to have seen Gabby get there with the lethal, I think there were possibilities, right? Because I think at the end of the turn, he still had shoot a 3 health minion with touch and then coil that minion to draw another card, I think. But the big issue he ran into there is that he didn't draw Demonic Assault. Demonic Assault is just a monstrous amount of damage in 1 card after you complete the quest. So I think that's what really prevented him from getting easy lethal there at that point. And obviously he did play the weapon as well, which is a point of debate because it ends up nerfing the amount of damage that you do overall. But still, very good performance. Yeah,
Demonic Assault as well, not only a ton of damage, but the Void Walkers allow you to target even more things, right? And set up even more coils and unstable bolts and stuff like that. So, yeah, things could have looked a little bit different, maybe a tad faster, but it doesn't matter. Gabby got the victory there. And although it was impressive and it was showed off what Warlock is capable of, I'm just a little bit disappointed. I just want to see the matchup where one player doesn't just get the nuts, right? Because Gabby, that is the opening you want, right? He had a backfire. He didn't even have to wait for card draw. He had the backfire already and then the double free admissions to build into it. So it's about as good as you're ever really going to get. But we are going to move on to a slightly different type of Warlock right now with Viper on this zoo. And again, questions are asked about this style of Warlock. I guess it's the lesser seen style overall in general opinion, but Viper's sitting here in the finals, right? And he's won enough games with it at this point, so it must be doing at least something right this week.
Yeah, he's won enough games with it. He's also simultaneously won and lost a game with the way that the rules
Not many decks can do that, Sol.
Yeah, that is a special type of deck indeed. Only decks with Knife Bender in them can win and lose a game at the same time. That's not true. You can do it with Hellfire and lots of other things as well. Backfire even, that'll do the job, I'm sure, in certain situations. But yeah, it's a very different take on the deck. I think we all probably played against this on ladder at some point, and I think for the most part it's very much gone out of style, but Viper has stuck with it, sticking with that very aggressive strategy. And again, I've made this point multiple times this weekend, but I do just want to make it again, is just because a player is playing a version of the deck does not mean that's their seal of approval to say this is the best version of the deck, go play it on ladder, right? They might have a very specific strategy, a particular matchup that they wanted to gain some percentage points on, an overall target strategy for their lineup, which means playing Hecklefang Hyena in their deck makes sense. And that's where tournaments and ladder differ, right?
Yeah, and also I think it's very easy, and maybe we've been guilty of this to an extent, is to try and line up these Quest Warlock decks as trying to be the same deck. And that's just not true, right? Like, you look at what Gabby just did, no minions basically, and then did an OTK combo, more or less. And the more combo focused the meta has become over the past week, there is a certain value in saying, well, if everyone's expecting this crazy combo stuff, what if I just play minions on curve and kill them with some additional bonuses that this version of Quest Warlock has? So again, as you mentioned, it's not as simple as, well, this is the best Quest Warlock. It's like, well, best for what, right? So we'll get to see how it performs overall as we dive in to game number 2. And Gabby, Gonna chuck the whole hand. Oh, I apologize. I was a bit quick there. The whole hand. I lied.
Right. Everyone on ladder, let that be a lesson to you. Gabby, arguably the best player in the world, is not keeping Oh My Yogg going first against a quest deck. It's not good. I know it amuses you to do this, but it's not good.
Not good, but very hilarious.
It is quite funny, yeah.
And let's be honest, would have made a great clip. Interestingly enough, what do you think about him not keeping SI, Infiltrator at that point? Sorry, Skulker at that point. Because he did throw away that as well.
It is a big shout, yeah. I think he's got a very singular plan in mind right now, and that is not necessarily trying... Yeah, I mean, that is pretty much it. It's not necessarily trying to fight for board, because I think he knows the efficiency of the minions on the other side are going to be too much for him. I think he understands that the Blessing of Authority Wind Fury plan, or the Blessing of Authority Conviction plan, is going to be his best way to do this, because we've already seen how much damage Viper will do to himself with this deck. The big question, though, and the one that I can't really answer for you in a satisfactory way, is why throw away the stealth minion? Because we're sat here saying, well, he's got the stealth minion now. That's great. That's part of the game plan, right? But he already had one of those, and he threw it away from the opening hand.
Because this stealth minion has one more attack, maybe. That's why. You know, seriously, he might have actually, in a weird way, been looking for the other combo pieces more often and just saying, well, actually, I can probably stick a minion or stick some form of Divine Shield, Stealth, or a protected minion with the likes of having a taunt in the way or something, and it's harder for him to actually draw into the other parts of the combo he needs because there's no card that replaces Battleground Battlemaster, right? There's no other card. Whereas there are multiple stealth minions in the deck, multiple Divine Shield minions that can kind of work in that fashion of being hard to remove from the board. So it might have just been that plan and saying there are more important things that are harder to naturally get hold of throughout the course of the game.
Just a little note here, small detail. Some people might say he just played the wrong minion because Viper would know he would have the Spectral Delinquent in his hand, and he's gone and played the natural one that Viper didn't know about. However, when this dies, he will have 2 minions in his hand, which means if he draws Banana Man, he's buffing 2 minions. He's valuing that over the little tiny bit of probably entirely irrelevant information that he's giving to his opponent.
Now, though, this is where things get a little bit scary. We've talked a lot about Battleground Battlemaster for this Paladin, but honestly, just a Blessing of Authority on a stealth minion, and if this other stealth minion comes down, well, that plus double conviction is just... Who needs Wind Fury, right? Like, that's just an absurd amount of damage. Gonna kill off the Dark Glare, makes sense. Now he can double play the Stealth, the Delinquents. Then he can go Blessing, then he can go double Conviction. I think that's just an ABC plan, as far as I can see it, Sottle.
ABC, always be Conviction. Yep, no, makes perfect sense.
Adds up to me.
There's the card. All right, Viper's deck is doing things now because there is the Flesh Giant. You can see how disturbingly cheap it is already on turn 4. Tap Giant is possible with the amount of self-damage going down.
Yeah, the Mosher as well. As you know, not an option for right now, of course, but just being able to just not only push some more damage, but maybe push a ton of health back on Viper's way if he can land it on something even half reasonable.
Here's the problem, though. If you play Flesh Giant here and your opponent plays Blessing of Authority on curve, and, I mean, a little bit sick in my mouth, value trades your Giant, can you actually recover from that position without Raise Dead in your hand?
Maybe. You have the Bolt, right? Because if this it's only +8/+8, the Giant will put it to 1, and then you just bolt it. It's not like there's no answer, but he is going to forego the Giant. And I'd also just like to remind everyone that Viper is not playing Battleground Battlemaster in his list. Yep. So it's not like Gabby doesn't have to feel the same sense of dread at there being a high attack minion on the board as Viper has to feel right now. He's just dead, isn't he?
14 plus 6 twice is 26. Yep.
So Mosher has to come down this turn.
Correct.
And that'll be enough, because even the 2/5 will only deal 2, right? The Mosher will heal for a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Can drop Flash Giant as well. Looks good to me.
the Wind Fury draw away from a good time though, and even then, like Viper is not like irretrievably ahead on board. Sorry, either at that point.
Oh, he knows. He saw the aim on the minion, right?
What? Why are we healing for one less?
Almost out of time.
Oh, it's because of the effect for the Flesh Giant, right? It double procs.
Oh, it's a good point. Yes. Well, all right, I take it all back. Good catch, Viper. Very, very nicely done, actually.
Gabby nearly got thrown out of his chair. The turn was so good. Never mind, it was because he drew Battleground Battlemaster. That is going to be the game. And Viper, great setup, great heads-up knowledge. He even got one up on Subtle, but it is not enough. Gabby rips the perfect one, and this is what we said. This deck does one thing in a very linear fashion. Sometimes you miss, but when you hit hard. And Gabby wins game number 2 with this Paladin.
He went full stage 3 Vince McMahon meme on that top. Whoa!
Because of the timing with the way we see it, I thought he was reacting to how clean and like relatively powerful Viper's turn was. No, he just drew the nuts.
No, but yeah, no, well played for Viper. That was, you know, really advanced recognition of what was going on there with the intervals and breakpoints at the end of the turn. Obviously, the amount of healing was actually completely irrelevant because he was going to proc off the quest again anyway to heal him back up to full. So recognizing that he created an extra interval for the Flesh Giant to be discounted was a really good spot for Viper there.
And just to explain, if you give lifesteal to that imp, the imp does 2 damage to you, but that has lifesteal, so then it heals you, and then the attack goes through as a lifesteal attack as well, which then heals you again as long as you've got the health, which allows the giant to be played down. So yeah, it's an interaction that...
It's because by healing for 1 less, he goes to 29, right? So then when the quest procs, he then heals again from the life.
It's all weird.
Off the
There's a lot of procs, basically, but yeah, just really solid play there from Viper, but unfortunately, solid play doesn't beat absurd levels of damage coming out from Gabby getting the exact card he needed there to end out that game, and that means he's only 1 game away, Sol, from ending out this series in a very, well, I'll say very convincing fashion, an explosive fashion, I'll say. I'm not sure about the convincing with how close some of the games were, but still pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean, he's drawn the Omega Nuts 2 games in a row. That's the reality of what's happened. But also the reality of what's happened is he has played hundreds and hundreds of games of the best deck in the game that other players have chosen not to and got incredibly good at it to the point where he submitted that deck. Right? Other people have not submitted the deck that can do that, the thing that Gabby did on turn 1. They've chosen not to do that. That's their fault. Gabby is here in the final with the best deck in the game. He's been rewarded for it with a very, very good draw. Second game, yeah, he drew the nuts, right? But he also mulliganed for the nuts. We were talking about it. He kept the Blessing of Authority. He kept that part of the puzzle and just looked very aggressively for those other parts. And that's a small detail again. I'm not going to say that he hasn't drawn the nuts, but again, he's put himself in the position to get lucky, and that's a big part of what Hearthstone is about.
And now, I think Gabby's feeling pretty comfortable with this Mage, because not only has he got this Zoo Warlock, which for me feels less dangerous than the big combo one, honestly. Just because like the minions get played, right? So you have targets to complete your quest, which makes me feel very comfortable as the Mage player. But also, even the other matchups I think are pretty okay for him here on this Mage, even if it fails at this hurdle. But oh, indeed, Incanter's Flow is there for Gabby, but Viper's hand ain't half bad either, so like, that's pretty good.
I love the Viper like glasses off tick. It's one of my favorite like player foibles, right? Where it's just whenever there's a hard turn, Viper's like, right, glasses off. And I'm just like, well, hang on. If taking your glasses off allows you to view and assess information better, why are you wearing the glasses?
No. It makes sense. It makes sense, right?
Okay.
It's distance from screen. Normally the glasses come out and it's the sit back. Right? So depending on whether it's short or long-sighted, so there you go. All about angles.
That makes sense.
But yeah, Viper does, looking at Incanter's Flow, of course, we know it's very, very good. Best card to have on 2 in the deck, no problem. But Viper does have what I would call like the opening with this deck, right? He has the Coin Imp into Quest into Flame Imp.
I mean, He can play his whole hand next turn if he really wants to. He can play Dark Glare first, attack, play a Flame Imp, play the other Flame Imp, then play the quest.
Weird to get progression done, yeah, but yeah, you are right.
I mean, is that bad? Do you want to not put like 8 power in play on top of this? I love this, by the way, freezing the Imp. Love it. Prevents all of that nonsense from happening.
Now we can only do Imp and Quest or double.
Yeah.
Imp.
Yeah. It's a slight bummer because we'll never know, right? But I think you do that, even if you give up all that proccing on the quest. It's just so much power in play so quickly.
Yeah, you just try and play Hunter in this matchup, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You just play Hunter, and also those reductions, you don't get the heal effect proc on the quest, of course, but all those health reductions are still going to make a giant cost nothing, right? Like, it's still going to be a huge reduction.
Mm-hmm. I think he's even considering, just doing something very similar here and just setting himself up for it. We saw him in a similar matchup before, in the game that ended up being the tie. We saw him in this situation where he was just foregoing a bunch of quest progression just to be as aggressive as possible with zoo cards instead. Oh. All right, so now he can go quest first, then attack, then start popping off with everything else. That's fine.
Even here, we can go imp anyway without the attack, can he?
Well, he can backfire if he really wanted to.
Sure.
He could attack, backfire, imp, and then possibly Flesh Giant if that drew Flesh Giant. I'm not 100% sure. I still can. He still hasn't gone at this
attack,
point, right?
Yeah.
He still has the attack to go through, so he can still backfire. This is the same thing, just in a different order. See, I'm pretty sure if this draws Flesh Giant is playable. It's not, okay.
Yeah, because you needed to
touch.
Yeah. And to probably quest twice instead of once right now.
Right.
That's obviously led to where he is right now. Still got a lot of pressure he can pile on next turn, and Gabby not winning the best. Oh! Okay, big deal there. Gets his quest procced as well. And again, I've said this a lot, and I'll keep saying it. Flurry, especially going to turn 5, it's great a freeze effect, but you need the freeze to be on a smaller board, or you're going to take a ton of damage anyway, or you're not going to be able to control the freeze effects. But now, Flurry, Fire Sail, Flow, Water, the hand went from quite slow to actually very strong here for Gabby.
So he's on 5 out of 7 on stage 2, which means he can go Mosher Flesh Giant this turn. Actually, he can do a lot more than that because he'll get the additional heal off the end of the quest, as well as damage and healing from the Mosher. So he can do a ton of stuff this turn, actually, with the Flesh Giant.
I think he's going to do it a little bit slower, though, right?
I mean, he still has a lot of options available to him, depending on what came down off the tap there.
Yeah,
he still has the mana to come back from the attack, which gets the Giant down to 0, so he's going to end up with the Bloodbound Imp instead.
Yeah, it was just that the Mosher required a specific tap outcome, right, versus a guaranteed one.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, Fire Sail does clear up enough to make Flurry work on what's left on the board. Gabby does have to be a little bit wary of this water, which I think is the hesitation.
Yes,
because he is playing 2 of these in the deck, which obviously makes this Spring Water not give him his full amount of mana back that he would need to do this turn. So actually, I like playing it safe here because you just don't want to throw the game because you got a little bit too greedy. He can just Spring Water next turn if he needs to.
That's an interesting decision.
I'm a little bit partial to devolving here, honestly.
Wait, really?
Well, if you get rid of the Giant, other than the second Giant, what are you afraid of?
I mean, how is that getting rid of the Giant? It's an 8-drop. Like, there's multiple minions on board. What if it just hits it once and it's a 7/7 or something? That's hardly doing anything to it, is it?
He doesn't have to get rid of it now, though. He can do it when he's killed the rest of the stuff.
Just wait 3 turns with a Giant on board. That'll be fine.
Gonna go Flurry to do it for more delay.
Yeah, I think I was leaning towards it, honestly. I will say, like, the Devolving Missiles was the one I liked least. Like, I was trying to give myself a reason to take Ignite there, but couldn't really justify one. I think your eyes light up when you play against this deck, right? And you're very eager to just try and deal damage to them because you think they're going to spend so much mana, hurting themselves. But in the end, I think stalling out this giant, which you don't really have an answer to right now, is probably the most sensible choice.
So many possibilities.
Pretty lackluster turn here from Viper.
Yeah, it is. First one of the game, and this is the one that Gabby will be looking to punish. Because I think you hit the nail on the head last turn, where Gabby's looking for a safer turn to take the risk with the Spring Water than the one he was looking at before, right?
Yeah, and if not many minions come down, even if Spring Water whiffs, he has that flurry now, right, to just at least give him some level of safety. Or honestly, even the Ice Barrier, because the way I look at Ice Barrier, especially in a matchup with Flesh Giants, is it's -1 Flesh Giant attack, so you only have to worry about the rest of the board, right? Oh, okay. First Flame, and...
It's a little ugly.
More First Flame.
Yep. Does mean he can just kill the giant though, right?
Yeah.
And this is stage 3 of Quest now as well.
He needs.
I'm saying he's on stage 3
okay,
of
sorry,
Quest, but yeah, he's not completing because, as you say, he's missing Arcane. But this is stage 3 that he is on.
And important again to say, Arcane, I feel, is one of the easiest one. Well, probably the easiest one to do. It doesn't require targets. There aren't any Arcane cards that can whiff, if that makes sense.
Yes. The problem is, like, if you top deck Cram Session, you're going to be a little sad because that's your Arcane to complete, but it's also the Arcane that you'd love to play after the fact, especially with double flow on your deck already. There is Tamsin. Nice and locked up.
I think it is important here for Viper to cash in some of this health, because 14 is not safe, even though Gabby's not exactly gone nuts with the quest. He's not, procced it already a lot of the times. You would expect a turn 6, at latest turn 7 guaranteed quest, and the minion being played from Mage.
Needs this to be Arcane though, Gabby, desperately. Arcane or card draw, but the thing is, the card draw seems to be Arcane. Like, you are going to fulfill both. Nope, that's not it.
Does get a barrier, it buys him some level of time.
Yeah, but I think the time escalates so quickly, right? Like, Tamsin comes down this turn, and because Gabby's now still a turn away, that means next turn Viper has Knife Vendor and Hyena and Unstable Blast to go along with all of that as well. Oh, double Knife Vendor now. Disgusting. Gabby can still do it though. If he draws, say, Arcane Intellect, he can play Arcane Intellect, that completes the quest. He then plays Arcanist Dawngrasp, and if the Arcane Intellect then draws Cram Session, this could still be lethal in one turn from this point for Gabby.
And this is a relatively slow turn, right, for Viper? If he goes for Tamsin, he could just go Tamsin and say, okay. But there's... With the one card, does he ever want to go, wider? I guess he can't, right? Yeah, he's not got the mana to, so Tamsin just plus Hyena or tap seems more than fine. This does open up the double Knife Vendor for next turn. Oh!
One Thief's an out. Means he has to pay a little bit too much mana for the Cram Session, but he can still... No, he wouldn't be able to fit, would it?
Shooting Star's not bad with Ignite.
Star is pretty good. Yeah, can use the Ignite to clean up.
Okay, that's looking... Realistically, one more turn here for Gabby. If he can survive, he still needs a strong draw.
It's not though, right? Oh, the Ice Barrier on top of that as well is a big deal.
Yeah, it's +1 health if the Tamsin attacks.
So he only has 16 from the 2 Knife Vendors right now. Yeah, 19 with the Raised Dead, so he's one off. Is there a better way to do it. If you go Raise Dead, Flame Imp, Shadow Bolt, is that ever more damage with one Knife Bender instead? Oh, he got the Heckle Fang Hyena.
He just does it over 2 turns, right? You can't do more than the Knife Bender, can you?
That's still 60. Well, yeah, I mean, Heckle Fang Hyena and Unstable Shadow Bolt is the same amount as one Knife Bender. If he'd have got, like, double Flame Imp there, he would have had lethal.
I wonder. Almost out of time.
Yeah, looks like one more turn for Gabby. Which I think means Viper Drain Souls this turn, right? Yep. Just be as secure as you possibly can be.
Yep, just trade away the minion again. Viper doesn't really need the minion to the minion to attack this turn. He's got a lot of damage and everything he needs, but Gabby's got this one chance.
Gabby looking at his deck expectantly, but I don't think he's hit it, and he has not. No.
He's
and
just
Knife Bender number 2 is going to take this one down.
Yep, he's going to kill the Flesh Giant and hope that the Ice Barrier is enough to protect him. We can see it's not. And the best card in the game ends it once again there for Viper. Knife Vendor getting the job done. Viper's fighting back. And just a reminder, Masters Tour Ogrimmar that we keep bringing up did end in a 3-2 victory, I believe, for Gabby over Viper. So if Viper takes the next win, there's still a chance that we get the exact final result as the cherry on top here. But big deal there, Viper, getting a win and getting set up now to try and beat Mage. The only worry, and I guess it's more of a worry for Viper because he's the one who has to win more games, but having one of those games being a Mage mirror is just infuriating. It's like, it's my least favorite mirror match I think I've had to play in a very long time.
It is a frustrating one for sure, but Gabby, I think, has certainly had the run of the green so far in this series, but his luck ran out a little bit towards the end there as he was just starved of card draw at the end. I thought when that Arcane Intellect appeared on the turn where I was talking about exactly that out, that the script writers were out in full force, but in the end, it was the Knife Benders that did the job for Viper. And I love that final end state of the board, Knife Bender, Heckle Fang Hyena. That's like the cards that I just look at this version of the deck and think those are just dumpster tier Hearthstone cards that you cannot make me play in my deck. Those are the 2 cards that I always laugh at when I look at this version of the deck, and there they are, just front and center, winning the game for Viper.
Yep, getting the job done. I will say as well, the One Thieves weren't exactly mind-blowing either for Gabby in that game. So, okay, well, one player's got a good handle on things. I really like the One Thief keep as well. I'm not sure how much you've thought about this or played it, but just having options, having targets, especially in this mirror, is so important that One Thieves are actually extremely clutch.
Raven, wash your mouth out. I have thought about everything. I was actually about to say that, like, I almost think the One Thief is as good in the opening hand as the Flow here because of that flexibility that you
so
get.
Wash your mouth out. Don't you dare say anything bad about Flow.
That, you know, not only are you going to flow on 2, but then having those targets, as you said, but also just the flexibility of using the One Thieves to look for those different spell schools to really fill in the gaps, right? Like, they are fantastic cards to have in the matchup. And now this also means there is no Springwater Brick this game for Gabby. It's not available anymore because he has both One Thieves in hand now.
Okay. I've been on Viper's side of this game very, very often here, and seemingly never on Gabby's, which might say something about me as a player. But Gabby here just having all the options in the world. Not the best options there, but Netherwind's at least an Arcane that he currently doesn't have access to.
Probably just take Wildfire.
Wildfire, yeah. Yep. It's the one I've seen taken the most in those kind of low-tier scenarios.
Just generic card that you can play in any state that says fire on it, because right now too much of Gabby's hand was situational at that point. He had a Brain Freeze, a First Flame. Yes, he has 2 One Thieves, but eventually he was going to run out of stuff to point things at him to more targeted spells, so I like the Wildfire choice.
Also as well, does do some damage in circumstances, right? If you never want to float the mana, but it is a little bit of extra for the rest of the game, it can help.
Here goes Arcane, probably just a guild trader.
Would you like? Okay.
Another happy guild.
I always feel weird about Guild Trader because you've then shuffled a minion to your Spring Water deck that you didn't have to shuffle in, and Kobold is so easy to play and target again, or utilize the spell damage for 1 mana. But again, the cycle that tradable gives is never to be truly ignored, right?
Viper dodges the, in his case, Gadgets and Auctioneer problems with the refreshing spring water.
Looks like we've lost the quest icon, and unless I'm going crazy, Viper has not completed the quest on turn 5.
Viper does not have a quest.
Oh, did he throw it? Okay.
I think he did. I actually did not notice that happen.
I missed it. I just thought the icon ran off for a bit. I don't know.
Unless I have a separate spectator that I watch on for redundancy purposes in situations like this.
Well,
unless mine is also bugged, he does not have a quest in play.
Yeah, the tracker says it's in his deck. So yeah, apologies to that. We both missed it. Really interesting, because like I said at the start, it's an infuriating matchup for me, mainly because the quest can get very difficult to do if you don't have access to those One Thieves, and Viper doesn't even play One Thief.
And it kind of makes sense, right? Like, again, the Mage Mirror is not something that I have a ton of experience in, but Viper's version of the deck with the Gadgetzan Auctioneer, we've seen him do it in the previous game, right? Where he never actually ended up playing the quest reward. He just cycled with Auctioneers and card draws, regular ignites in and out of his deck, and ended up burning out that way. So maybe he just feels like that's a faster way to attack the Mage Mirror than trying to complete his quest.
And I can see it, honestly. Like I said, I've been jamming Mage a lot today and in the last day or a couple of days or so. And it's horrible because sometimes you get stuck with these just terrible hands. First Flame in Gabby's hand, if it wasn't for the double One Thief opening, he'd just be sat there with First Flame thinking, well, how do I get rid of this?
Yep.
It's a nightmare. And like you said, Viper with the Gadgetzan has the capability to just do the slightly, in a weird way, slower and low impact but high enough damage, like Infinity ignites, right?
Don't think it's going to end up getting there this game, though, because Gabby is already all the way along to part 3. He has Ice Barrier, One Thief, First Flame, his own One Thief next turn, and then he is just done with the quest.
He can't Ice Barrier, right? Isn't that Ice Barrier that's active now?
Oh, is it? Okay, in that case.
It's not Netherwind, unless I've blinked and missed an additional secret.
You are right. In which case he needs something... I mean, he could just play One Thief, not discover anything, and then throw something else, but he will be one spell away from being able to do that because he can't target both First Flame and Brain Freeze at his own One Thief, so it might just take him one additional turn here, but we shall see.
Or even longer, right? Well, I guess what you do is you Brain Freeze it and then try and get a Burn Fire spell, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way you'd finish it.
Yeah, just has to find Ignite or Fireball or something like that, or even just studies into another spell damage minion that he could throw the other spell at instead. That works.
Hot Streak would cover it, or Fire Sale, yep, all the options. I do love the amount of times, as you've noticed over the course of this weekend, if you're wondering why sometimes the cards go grey in certain instances, it's just everyone looking at the quest progression. Like, the amount of times you look at quest progression as a player now is ridiculous. Yeah. Even if you know, you still check it just in case.
Okay, Brain Freeze his own minion here.
Yep.
And just rip the Fire Sale, I imagine.
Makes sense, but Gabby still is in that scenario where he has the quest complete now. The Arcanist Dawn Grasp is in hand, but he doesn't have the follow-up, which is the card draw yet.
Right.
And look at this from Viper. Double Brain Freeze, Flurry, 2 Ice Barriers. Is that another Flurry on the far left? Like, it's horrible. And this is the situation where, honestly, you start to think about Wand Thief. I'm just naming cards. You just start to think of One Thieves and how valuable they would be. Viper's obviously mulliganed away the quest. He's made that decision anyway, but these hands are still terrible because you've just got nothing to aim at for these secrets.
Yeah, that's suddenly why, like, Netherwind Portal here, which is a play that you might be critical of, right? It just puts a minion in play for Viper to use a bunch of spells on. Doesn't matter. Like, that's not Viper's game plan this game. He's not worrying about casting a bunch of different spell schools on minions. He's just trying to dig through his deck and set up the OTK with Gadgetzan Auctioneer. There's the flow, finally.
The biggest criticism is the fact that you've let Viper get rid of bad cards from his hand by doing this, but that's about it. But it also progressed Gabby's quest, right? Because it's an arcane spell. Oh, imagine that's the Thanos.
Gotta be Blood Mage, yeah.
Yep.
Considering holding it maybe to play around weird devolving missiles situations. Obviously, conventional wisdom would say just play it right now and deal the extra damage with the Ignite that you're probably going to play this turn. But he could play it this turn and first flame it. He could just Ignite face and hold on to it and just ping it next turn. Like, there's a lot of ways to go about this instead.
Yeah, I was looking at the first flame this turn because I don't think one additional shuffle of Ignite is going to make a huge difference when he has 17 cards in the deck. It's not like, he's on 3 cards left, and if he ignites this turn and then draws it again next turn, he wins. Although,
well, if anything,
I guess that's not far away.
Probably deals slightly less damage on average to put another Ignite in your deck, because, yes, 1 Ignite in your deck is also 1 more Ignite in your deck, but it's 1 less Cram Session, Arcane Intellect, Refreshing Spring Water in your deck, right? Yeah. Which probably gets you further on average. Tough to say.
And even in a weird way, Fireball, right? Which just strictly does more damage if you're on a top deck basis, of course. But here goes Viper, finally getting something together with this Gadgetzan #1. A nice 0 mana proc there of the old Questaroo. But a shake of the head, guessing Viper's just gone a bit dry now? He's looking for flow, right? Flow 2?
He's looking for the second flow, exactly. I think that's what the frustration is that he just hasn't found that yet. If he finds the second flow, he has borderline infinite mana this turn. Obviously, the Ignites that go back in once he hits Fatigue will not be getting discounted over and over again. But you can certainly see how, even with a very bad hand from Viper, he's really not that far behind in terms of his win condition, right? I'm kind of liking the way that this is panning out from Viper right now, having never seen the matchup attempted in this way.
When you see, there's an Ignite he could play this turn, there's only 5 cards left, he's going to draw a card next turn, of course, but it'll go to 6, I guess. But all these Ignites will start stacking up. That's 4 damage there, that draws him a card, puts him back to 5. It's a lot, and now he's got that water. Maybe with the Gadgetzan plus water next turn, he can get something done. 8.
Right, for 8. Fire Sale can trade. Blood Mage can still bite the dust. You could actually just Fire Sale for damage here. It costs 1 more, but it still draws a card and it kills the Auctioneer.
If he draws Ignite, it's... Okay, it's not lethal now.
Ignite for 9, but he's 1 off. The hero power deals 2, but he's 1 mana off being able to cast it.
Now Fireball won't get him there either, right?
Nope. He's just going to have to first flame down that Auctioneer, but the second Auctioneer is in hand here for Viper. There's still a second Incanter's Flow in the deck that costs 1. There's a Spring Water in hand, but that's currently not playable alongside the second Auctioneer.
Oh, he just knows he's dead in so many worlds next turn as well. You never expect to live on 3 health here, even though he can freeze out these minions. Because, wait, did he... Oh, has he played both flurries? I'm wrong, I'm sorry.
There's the flow, studies, and he finds Kobold. So now he's going to go Auctioneer. He can cast the flow to discount the Ignites that are still in the deck and start drawing them now.
Yep. That's really good. So that means he can cast 2 flows, 2 Ignites.
5 on the first Ignite, which means 6 on the second Ignite, I would presume. Well, there could actually just still be 3. It is 3, yeah. It's the other one.
Now he wants to draw instead, right? Doesn't he use a 0 cost?
Make a difference.
Guess it doesn't matter, he just can't do it, right?
He's just dead either way.
Yeah, because now he's dead from fatigue, isn't he? Yeah. So close, and honestly, a great attempt from Viper and a really cool way to play out the game. But the smirk on the young boy Gabby here, and the little clap in the air as he wins the game.
No, don't. Yeah, that's more like it. That's more like it, Gabby. Don't you try and pretend you're being I can't even say the word, magnanimous in victory. You are a smug little child, and we all know that, Gabby. Just live up to it, okay? Don't try and be gracious. With that initial look on your face and a little raised eyebrow, we know that's how you feel, really. But honestly, super interesting play from Viper all weekend, right? Like, the way he approached some of the quest curves in Quest Warlock was really interesting, delaying it for a very long time. He found some very nice hidden plays with the Flesh Giant as well. Completely missed one hidden play with a lethal as well, but we'll let him off that one. But then the no quest Mage, I did find very interesting. I will absolutely hold my hands up and say that's just not a way I've played the matchup myself. It's not a way I've even seen the matchup played, but that was about as bad a draw as you can possibly get. First flow with 12 cards left. Second flow was like bottom 4, bottom 3, something like that. Didn't hit a Spring Water on his Miracle turn, and still he was very, very close to being able to get it done. So maybe the no quest approach to the mirror does need further examination if you're playing the Auctioneer list.
That's it. I mean, you've got to look at it, right? And if he'd got I know you could say this about any game of any moment, but if he'd gotten a flow in that first Gadgets and cycle, then things could have looked very, very different. Everything's cheaper, you cycle more.